Well, welcome to this week's edition of A Capital Idea. I'm Chaka Fattah, United States Congressman representing Pennsylvania, and today we have an extraordinary public servant, and my friend, he's a congressman and a leader in the House, Steny Hoyer, who served for over 30 years now in the United States Congress. But I want to tell our viewers that today this is going to be a really important segment for this show and for our country, because we're focusing on a critical issue in our economy, manufacturing. Now, I have went out and visited manufacturers all throughout the Philadelphia area. Steny, in fact, came in town and we met with a group of local manufacturers. But I've also been around the country. I've seen the work done in Washington State where the Dreamliner is being constructed. I've been out to the Pratt Whitney plant in Hartford, Connecticut, where they're making jet engines. When you see Americans putting things together, making things that help create real living wage jobs and products that we need in our country, it should remind all of us that we have over 11 million Americans who are going to work every day in manufacturing. Right. We're still, even though some people want to kind of have some selective amnesia on this, but we are the leading manufacturing nation in the world. But what used to be an absolute lead for us is now a relative lead. And we've seen some 30,000 small, medium manufacturers close their doors. We need to reverse that trend. And at the point of the spear is Steny Hoyer. He said, look, we need to make it in America. We need to change what we're doing, have a program that focuses on helping manufacturers. I've introduced some legislation in this regard, but Steny's got together a group of members and a whole package, and we've been very successful in terms of moving this administration and moving the country to focus on this issue. So I wanted to welcome you and just have you talk to us about why you see this as so important and what you intend to see done about it.
Well, first of all, Chaka, let me thank you for inviting me on to be on your program. Secondly, let me thank you for your extraordinary leadership. As a leader in the Appropriations Committee in the Congress of the United States, you've been on the point of the spear with me, if you will, in saying that we ought to have policies that encourage the expansion of manufacturing in America. You know, we came up with this Make It in America agenda. When we had a discussion some 3 years ago when I was majority leader, we'd be sitting around the table and we talked about how Americans thought if we were going to continue to be the great country that they wanted us to be, continue to provide the kinds of middle-class jobs that provided good pay and benefits that the middle class needs and wants and America needs, we were going to have to continue to have a Made in America label all over the world. And we talked about that for about 20 minutes, and I said, you know, Made in America is what we did yesterday. Mm-hmm. Make It in America is what we're doing today and we'll do tomorrow. And so we need to have an agenda which facilitates and ensures that America is making it here and selling it here and around the world. So we came up with this agenda, but as I say, you've been one of the real leaders here because you've put into action the Make It in America theory by sponsoring legislation, putting money in the appropriations bills to encourage, facilitate, and help people make it in America.
Well, we've worked together on this, and we've you know, through the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, we have raised to the highest level ever in terms of the appropriations. We're tangibly working with over 25,000 manufacturers each and every week in this country about what their needs are, what help they can be provided. I went out to speak in Orlando at a conference of these manufacturers. They were so excited that they had someone of your stature in the Congress who was focused on this issue. We now have rolled out the National Innovative Marketplace, which is a kind of a shopping, it's kind of a combination between YouTube and eBay, but it focuses on what the government's procurement needs are so that our local manufacturers in Maryland and Pennsylvania, but all across the country, can know that if they are in a position to fulfill these needs for the government, that we can buy from them versus having to buy it from somewhere off our shores. So there's a lot of work that's been done, but you know, there's more work to do in this area.
You know, there really is, Chaka, and you have done a number of very significant things, but one of the first principles of the Make It in America agenda is we need a plan. We need a playbook, if you will,
Yes.
as to how we're going to compete. Because, as you pointed out, there was a time when America was unrivaled, and there was no competition. And so we sort of took for granted that America would be on the leading edge of manufacturing. We continue to be the world's center of invention, innovation, and development. And while, as you point out, we are still the largest manufacturer of goods in the world, we have a lot of competition. And if we don't have a plan, if we don't have a focus, if we don't have some coordination of how we stay number one, but also expand, not to beat other people, but to provide those jobs and that economic activity that is necessary to keep our standard of living where we want it, to have it grow, and grow jobs and opportunities for our people. So that the plan is the first thing. Secondly, we want to encourage exports. Penny Pritzker is our new Secretary of Commerce, who knows a lot about business, and she and I have talked, and I know you've talked to her as well. She is very much focused on making sure that our small, medium, and yes, large businesses understand how they can export their product, so that not only can they manufacture for sale here in the United States in a local market, Pennsylvania, right, Maryland, or the United States, but also how they can make sure that their product is available overseas so they can expand their markets, expand their sales, and therefore expand their businesses.
Well, everybody watching us today knows about the great, candy that's made in Philadelphia, the peanut chews. We brought in an opportunity for, the Export-Import Bank and some of our other entities to work with local businesses. Now peanut chews are now sold in 45 other countries. And it's still the best candy in the world. But Pinfish and Tackle, you were in when we had the meeting with the manufacturers in Philadelphia. We brought the Commerce Secretary to the plant there. They make the world's best saltwater fishing reels. Now they sell at a very high clip, but if you're a serious fisherman, you want to have this reel because it's the best. But most of our businesses haven't picked up on what you are actually saying yet, because only 1% of American businesses export to any other country.
And so many of them that do export only to one country.
57% only export to one other country. And, we have to get our businesses to think about, those big containers that are on the ships. We don't want them coming over filled up and leaving empty.
Absolutely.
We want to have trade. Trade means, it's a two-way street. So we want to be selling products in other places. And part of that is to get our business people geared up. And some of the programs under the Commerce Department help American businesses set up relationships through our embassies and through our commercial foreign service. We can help businesses find markets abroad, and we want to do that. We have, in my district, all manner of, and I know the same is true in Maryland and throughout the country. We have Americans who are making great products, but we want to make it here. We want to sell it everywhere in the world, and we want to get that notion of exporting, which the administration has really put a big emphasis on. And we really have doubled our exports, but we're starting from such a low base. We have a lot of runway room here to increase
we have
exports.
the biggest market in the world right here in the United States, and so it's always been the premise that was sufficient. But then, of course, what happened in the 60s and 70s and 80s, our competitors started to grow. They started to shift products here, sell products here, better prices. What is now happening, however, throughout the world is, which is good for us and good for them, salaries are going up throughout the world, particularly in some of our biggest competitors. Their salaries are going up. Secondly, the cost of shipping a good from overseas back to the United States, the biggest market, has gone up. And thirdly, we are becoming the energy low-cost supplier in the world, which none of us would have said 15 years ago was going to be the case. And those are all decisions that companies make of where to manufacture things.
Well, and one of the things that we've done, and because of the impulse of one of our colleagues, Chairman Wolf, we have been able to put into the Commerce Department a fund of well over $10 million that can help businesses do the actual calculation of what we call the all-in cost. So if you rather than a manufacturing plant that you think is going to be cheaper for your business, some other place, to look at the all-in cost, as you mentioned, the transportation cost to get the product back to the American market. And what businesses are finding out is that it's a lot better to make it here. It's a lot cheaper to make it here. They can have a larger profit margin. They don't have to deal with political instability or transportation costs. And in our situation where energy has become so much more plentiful in our country, it's cheaper because no one uses energy more than manufacturers. So you're absolutely right. I want to mention one other thing to you and get you to comment on. I've introduced a bill, H.R. 614, which is the American Discoveries, American Jobs Act. And the theme here is, I'm the biggest proponent in the Congress, I think, in terms of investing in science. And, you know, science is very, very important. National Science Foundation, our national labs, our whole infrastructure. As you pointed out, discovery is key to manufacturing. But what I want to do through my bill is to tie taxpayer investment in discovery to a requirement that the jobs that emanate from that discovery be in the United States of America.
Chaka, which is, of course, consistent with having a plan. In other words, if we're going to invest, and we're going to invest in research, the internet, people don't know this. DARPA's research, the Defense Advanced Research Agency, was directly responsible for the development of the internet, which has had an extraordinary economic impact. And so many other investments that government has made in long-term research, risky research that investors might not pay for, but which the government developed, have had extraordinarily positive economic consequences for the manufacturing sector and for the business sector in our country. And that needs to be part of our plan. And of course, you mentioned science and technology. Not only does investment in research and science and technology critical, but investing in a 21st century workforce is also critical. That's part of our four-step plan in terms of making it in America, that we invest in the education of our young people, both from the high school level, college level, technical level. You and I both go to an awful lot of manufacturing facilities throughout the country. And it's really exciting to see the enthusiasm and energy that people are bringing to it, and to see both the private sector training that's making a difference and the public sector training that's making a difference. So young people who don't think of manufacturing, but you know, young people can make six-figure incomes in manufacturing, and they're in high demand.
They're in very high demand. We have manufacturers in Pennsylvania who've had jobs posted for more than 8, 9, 10 months, some long as a year. Companies like Air Products and others who have had some challenges in filling some of these positions. I met with a group of manufacturers at 7 o'clock in the morning, a whole group of them. They went around the room to talk about what their biggest challenge is. And their biggest challenge was really being able to hire capable people. This is no exaggeration, finding people who are willing to come to work, learn how to become a machinist, and understand that you got to get trained through the process, right, at our shipyards, and and they were saying this was their #1 challenge in their plants throughout, and this was in the Philadelphia area, the ones I met with on this. So it is something that's very, very important, because we need to have a skilled workforce, and there's a lot of computer-aided design now. There's a lot of very high-end math, but some of our unions can help with the training. We had some of the government officials from here in Washington out at the Steam Fitters Training Center in Philadelphia, where the steam fitters, at no cost to the government, are training people to do the important work that they need to be able to do, so that they can have what are six-figure jobs. I mean, they really are their own business people. Yes.
Let me make a comment also as maybe we wrap up here. So much of what we're doing in the Congress today is confrontational, and people see conflict. One of the things I like about the Make It in America agenda is you and I can go to the most conservative district in America, most Republican district in America, and talking about manufacturing in America, creating manufacturing jobs, exporting overseas, and everybody's head will say, yeah, that's what we ought to be doing. You can go to the most liberal district in America, most democratic district in America, talk about making it in America, manufacturing products in America, selling them here and around the world. People will nod their heads. This is a unifying agenda. This is an agenda which Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals can join together on, understanding that this will provide opportunities for our people and economic well-being for our country. So this is why I think the Make It in America agenda that you've been so critically important in pursuing and furthering is so important for our country.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. You know, some of the economists, when the President and you and others said we're going to put manufacturing on the map, say, oh, this is not something we could do. Well, we've seen now in this recovery over 44 months that the strongest growth area has been in manufacturing.
You're right.
And, you know, sometimes you got to push the naysayers to the side and go with what you know works. And we know making things and making our way in this world is what really works. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaka, very much for your leadership.
All right. Thank you. 3 years ago, when I became the lead Democrat on commerce-related appropriations, I said that manufacturing was going to be our leading focus. It now has proven to be the leading edge of our recovery, with hundreds of thousands of new manufacturing jobs. I shared my plan at a summit for the Manufacturing Extension Partnership as part of moving around the country and talking to a whole host of groups. But this was at a summit in Orlando, Florida, with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership.
This afternoon, I'm introducing legislation in Washington focused on looking at technology transfers from the federal laboratories and from our federal agencies into commercial utilization, but tying to that transfer a responsibility that, first and foremost, that when licensing agreements are provided by the federal government for the development of new and improved widgets of all kinds, that those license agreements be contingent on those items being manufactured here in America.
I visited with a lot of our local manufacturers, and on one such visit, I got a chance to spend some time at Nielsen-Kellerman with the leader of that company, Alix James, who's a great rower, a Penn Law graduate, but she runs one of our best manufacturing companies in the country. So first of all, this company that you run, how many people do you employ here?
84 today.
And you make electronic gadgets that help people perform better, whether they are rowers or snipers.
Correct.
Or anyone who wants to judge the wind and what actually. So tell me about your top of the line widget or gadget.
So on the weather instrument side, the more specialized the features, the more top of the line it is. So our two most expensive weather and environmental instruments right now, one measures everything about the environment: wind speed, temperature, air pressure, humidity, wind direction. And then you can input information about the gun that you are using, the target you're shooting at, and the bullet you're shooting, and it will calculate how far above or the target or to the left or right of the target you're shooting.
So when people are getting ready to compete, like in major international competition, they're looking for NK. They want your product.
It's used extensively in sniper competitions.
Right.
It is actually used extensively in military operations.
Okay.
Every Special Forces sniper is carrying a Kestrel and using a Kestrel.
Right, now you run this even though you went to law school. Now my wife went to Penn Law. You went to Penn Law.
I did.
So how do we get from the law school at Penn to the plant floor where you are a major manufacturer in a niche market?
Right.
That's doing great and is a worldwide.
So I cannot say that was my plan.
Okay.
My stepfather was one of the two founders of this company. This company was founded in 1978 in upstate New York. Started in my basement. It was a classic American basement business. Okay. Went from the basement to the garage, and then we moved. The first move into a real building was the FMZ Rayon building in Marcus Hook.
Okay.
And we've been
So how did we get to the Philadelphia area then?
My mother went to West Town at Friends and loved this area and always wanted to come back down here.
Right. Mom knows best, right?
Mom knows best.
So
Mom found the plant.
Now, I've been in the Congress working to promote manufacturing. And we lead the world in manufacturing today. We have 11 million Americans that go to work every day.
Which people
making
don't
things.
know. They think we've stopped making anything.
Absolutely. We're number one in the world. But
Yeah.
what used to be the absolute leader is now relative. We have others who are trying to catch up. And we've lost a lot of small, medium-sized manufacturers in our country. So I've been trying to promote the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. And we've raised it up now to the highest appropriations level yet, over $130 million, working hands-on with tens of thousands, actually around 27,000 manufacturers like you. Tell me about DVIRC, which is our local MEP provider.
Yep.
What services does this federally funded program provide to a manufacturer like you?
So the MEPs are public-private partnerships, which to me is the best way to spend government money.
Public
because
and
they have
private, working together.
They have to, and they have to be competitive. They provide consulting services, particularly focused on lean manufacturing principles, which really expands much beyond that. It's lean manufacturing, it's lean management, it's lean employee development. Lean really is a philosophy about how to improve the process for doing the things you do. And it's a process for improving the process. The focus is always, in anything you're doing, identifying wasteful activities. People say, oh, I leaned out my business. That does not mean you got rid of people. It means you eliminated activities that were not things your customer wanted to pay you for.
Well, plus you can actually become lean and add employees if you add market share for your product. So it's about becoming more efficient.
It is. So my way of expressing to our employees what we're trying to do here is that we have 3 legs that we stand on. And we focus on preserving what we've built over 35 years. So that means delivering every order on time with a product that works completely reliably, maintaining our reputation. We have to grow. I don't want to ever run a shrinking company because growing lets you create opportunity for your employees.
Well, I remember when I brought Steny Hoyer in to meet with local manufacturers, you told him then that you hadn't seen a lean year, not lean in that sense, but that you had been growing at 22% each year. And
we don't manage that every year. We've done that
right,
quite a few
but what was
years.
important was that conversation took place at the heart of the downturn.
Which we were level. The worst year we had, we were level.
Right, so it shows that if you have the right management and you have a product that people need, and it's a quality product, and it's made in America.
Which definitely helps.
Yeah, and we want to tell the story that our country, our economy, can't be just service and information. We want to be in the business of making things, and this is a great example. It's right here in Philadelphia, and in the Philadelphia area, and but it is part of a story that's nationwide. Now, I've introduced some legislation that says that if we're going to invest in federally funded research that leads to new products, that those products should be manufactured in America. That the idea is that if we're going to fund federal research at our national laboratories and the National Science Foundation, if we're going to find different ways to do things, we should also connect that up with creating opportunities for domestic manufacturers.
So you and I completely agree. And the reason I believe we need to focus on domestic manufacturing, there's not another dollar you can spend that has a greater multiplier effect. Nothing else. Services do not. So when we spend $1 here, we're not only supporting all of these employees and all of the new cars that they've bought that are parked in the parking lot and all of their children that came to our Christmas party last Friday, but we have a network of also, I focus on trying to source materials as much as possible in the United States. So every one of those people that we're then spending our dollars that we've earned from our customers with has the same multiplier effect in their local community. And we've got to buy paper towels, and we've got to buy, heat, and manufacturing has a tremendously multiplying effect. And so to leverage those dollars, and we have allowed some skills and knowledge to pretty much leave.
Yes.
We are starting to bring it back. To me, one of the biggest examples of that is the sewing and fabric
Yes.
industries. And we've largely allowed that to leave the country. And it's a challenge. I'm trying to source some carry cases here in the United States, and there's not very many options. We do have another really excellent rowing business that that sews custom uniforms in northern Philadelphia.
Is this Boathouse Sports?
Boathouse Sports.
Well, see, I visited Boathouse Sports more than a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
And I was fascinated because the work that was being done. They make all of the uniforms for NFL teams except for the Dallas Cowboys. We don't like Dallas here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You know,
they
we're
make
kinda,
uniforms for rowing, swimming,
right.
And they need to be lean because their whole business turns on, they get an order and they're down to source citing which color is in which place on the uniform, and then they're turning those uniforms in a matter of weeks.
Well, I know Boathouse. I've been there. I've been on the plant floor, and I've been around the other manufacturers. And we got in the Philadelphia area well over 1,200 manufacturers who are making things every day, from world-class fishing reels up through the tarp that covers the sports stadiums in many places in our country, but all around the nation. We have people who are making things, and I think that the role of the federal government is to make sure that whatever we're doing, we should be trying to help manufacturers.
Well, spending federal dollars domestically where it makes sense is a huge...
Well, one of the other big secrets is we've set up now something called the National Innovative Marketplace, where we're putting online all of the items that the federal government has to purchase that are not domestically manufactured. So for the Department of Energy, you know, if we're going to spend billions on rebuilding the electric grid, well, we invented electric transformers, so we don't make any more here in America. But the items that we have to buy every time there's a flood, or FEMA has to buy supplies. I asked the head of the Army Corps of Engineers, I said, well, what do you know you have to purchase that's not made here in America? He said there are hundreds of items that we know every season when there are, unfortunate circumstances where tornadoes or floods, the Army Corps has to come in and do work. Well, we should pre-plan and make sure that manufacturers know that these are items that they could make and that they'd be a willing buy.
Access is a tremendous role.
Well, we put $4 million into this effort. We're rolling in one state after another to make sure that manufacturers have the government's shopping list.
Right.
And so if you're making something that is close or akin to that, or you can put on a different shift and do that, we want you to be able to do that work. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for participating. This is a capital idea. It's the best show on TV. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me thank you for watching. Let me thank Minority Whip Steny Hoyer, and a special thanks to Alix James for giving us an inside look at one of America's most successful manufacturing plants. I'm Chaka Fattah, United States Congressman. Thank you.